this way. Look into the light. Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Ken McLean, the treasurer for the Big Sky Unitarian Universalist Fellowship and your service leader for today. Thank you all for being here. Welcome. Welcome as you are. You are welcome here. Visitor, friend, or longtime member, you are welcome here. With little children or your partner or alone, we joyfully welcome you here. You are welcome here as believer or doubter, as joiner or loner. You are welcome here. Feeling a part of us or not, full of energy or not, seeking a vision or a rest, you are welcome to join us as you are. We acknowledge that we are in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish, Nez Perce, Blackfeet, and Anishinaabe people who shared the Helena Valley as hunting grounds. The indigenous story of the Helena Valley began long before the arrival of Europeans. We honor those who walked here before us. We honor the path they have shown us in caring for this place for generations to come. We strive for justice and fair relations with their descendants. And now, Karen, do you want to do announcements before the chalice? Okay. We have time for announcements. If anyone has an announcement that has not been put in Friday's announcements or printed in the bulletin. Does anyone have an announcement they'd like to share?
Very good. We'll move right on to lighting the chalice.
The chalice reading is printed in your bulletin. And if you'll read along with me, please. Come into the beauty of this place of peace, and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory, and let its history warm your soul. Come into this place of prophecy and power, and let its vision change your heart. Now we'll have our opening hymn, which is in the Open Your Heart songbook. This one, for those of you who are guests. It is page 2, Welcome to the Circle.
Are you feeling weary, tired of being strong? Welcome to this circle. It's a place where you belong. Do you have a burden that feels too much to bear? Do you have a bitterness you don't know how to share? Do you feel too angry to breathe or laugh or pray? Well, there's no one in this circle who never felt this way. So welcome to this circle, whatever brought you here. The valleys and the mountain tops, the muddy and the clear. And know your work is worthy, and know your heart is true, and know that all you give away will come circling back to you. You got to know that all you give away will come circling back to you.
Thank you, Judy and Cheryl. And now we have our story for all ages with one of my favorite UUs, Shar Hansen. And I expect every kid to come forward. Shar will not bite you. She's had all of her shots. She's good. Come on. Come on. Come on. Sam, I know you can move. I saw you walk in. It's a great story. You'll love it.
I'm going to hold it for you. I'll just have it at first here. Don't give it. You want to hold it? Yeah. Okay. This is called Henry Works by D.B. Johnson, and you can see this picture here. And this book is interesting because it's all about UUs. It's just crawling with Unitarians. Every character in this book is a Unitarian. Except maybe the groundhogs. They didn't say whether they are. But these people in this book are portrayed by bears, as bears, but they really were real people that lived 200 years ago. So they were all part of our Unitarian history. Now at the very end, Henry tells you what his work is, but as we go through the book, there's other work he does. So I'm going to ask you at the end about his other work. So there's more than just one kind of work that Henry does. Okay, the first page here. Now, you guys want to look that way or look this way? I guess you're looking that way. It's a misty, miserly morning, and Henry steps out the door and sniffs the air. It's a perfect day to walk to work. Henry stops beside the pond to dig comfrey root. Channing walks by. Now, Channing was a Unitarian minister back in the day. Henry, he says, you're not doing anything today. Come fishing with me. Not today, says Henry. I'm walking to work. Henry puts the comfrey root in his hat and he walks down the path. From the top of the hills, Henry sees clouds far away. It's been a dry summer, but he knows it will rain today. Well, we already know it was a miserly morning, so yeah, it's coming. The rain will not come until afternoon, so Henry fills his cup with water and sprinkles it on the milkweed flowers. Hosmer meets him on the path. Now, Hosmer's interesting. He was a Unitarian minister, and 8 of the songs in our Unitarian songbook were written by him. Are you being a rain cloud today, Henry? I'm walking to work, Henry says. At the brook, Henry cuts a pole from a pine branch. With it, he pushes 3 crossing stones into place. You know how that works, don't you, kids? Where you put the stones and you jump on the stones so your feet don't get wet. He puts the pine needles in his hat with the comfrey root. Henry tramps the trail across Hosmer's field and finds a fox's den. Mrs. Hosmer is sitting at her front window. Henry calls to her. "Hey, keep your chickens inside tonight, there's a fox around." He leaves a branch of sweet-smelling pine on her window ledge. In town, Henry meets the postmaster. "Henry," he says, "I can't walk on my sore foot. Since you're not working, can you take this letter to Emerson?" "I'm walking to work right now," Henry says, "but I'll take it to him on my way." Henry takes the comfrey root out of his hat and gives it to the postmaster. It will make his foot better. People for centuries have used comfrey root for inflammation, so that's what he's doing. He's actually giving him medicine. Henry finds Emerson in his garden and gives him the letter. Now that's Ralph Waldo Emerson, who we all know about. "The woodchucks are eating everything in my garden, Henry." "Oh, I can take care of the woodchucks," says Henry. "I'll bring them out to the country on my way to work." Henry plays his flute and the woodchucks run to him. He tucks one in each pocket and he walks off through the woods. Well, Henry must have really big pockets because woodchucks are really in the marmot family and they're almost as big as marmots. So he's got really big pockets. Or they're little woodchucks. Harrison had a point. It could be they're all babies. In Alcott's field, where Henry sets the woodchucks free, he finds a patch of wild strawberries. He digs up some of the plants and puts them in his hat. Mrs. Alcott is hanging shirts to dry in the yard, like Louisa May Alcott, who wrote Little Women. "You'll have to bring in those shirts soon," Henry tells her. "It's going to rain in an hour." Henry walks along the road to Hawthorne's house. That's Nathaniel Hawthorne. Inside the fence, the garden is growing wild with grapes and raspberries. Henry takes the strawberry plants out of his hat and finds a perfect place for them in Mrs. Hawthorne's garden. It starts to rain. Henry walks in the mill brook, measuring the shallow water as he goes. Soon he meets old Flint sitting on the bank. Now, Flint had the pond where Thoreau originally built a cabin, but it's not where Walden was written. "Are you taking a bath, Henry?" says Flint. "No," says Henry, "I'm just walking to work." I kind of wonder why he decided to walk in the stream. Henry climbs out of the brook and into the middle of a big huckleberry bush. He crawls under it to cut away the tangles and picks berries until his pockets are full. Henry marks a path from the road to the huckleberry bush. See the arrow? You guys can't see it behind the thing, but he's got an arrow there. As Henry walks down the path to his cabin, he meets Channing. That's the original minister we had at the beginning. Channing, carrying his fishing pole, shows Henry the fish he has caught. "Did you go to work, Henry?" he says. "Oh, I'm just getting to work now," says Henry. "What is your work?" Channing says. "It's writing," says Henry. "I'm writing a book." Henry turns towards his cabin. All day he's taking care of things in the woods and in town. Now he's back where he started. Inside he lights a fire. He hangs up his hat and coat. Then Henry sits at his desk to begin his book. "Today," he said, "I took a walk in the woods." Okay, that's the story, how he ends up writing in his own cabin where he left in the first place. But what other work did he do today besides writing? He's quiet. Oh, I've got quiet people. Well, anybody out there in the audience wanted to share what kind of work he did today besides writing?
He transplanted wild strawberries.
He transplanted wild strawberries into a friend's yard, into Nathaniel Hawthorne's yard, I think it was.
Delivered a letter.
Pardon?
Delivered a letter.
He delivered a letter, yes. So do we think of these things as work? So when we say the book is called Henry's Work, is it just writing? He did a lot of good things for his friends, and he stopped and saw a lot of them. He brought comfrey root to the post office, the postmaster, and there's certainly something else he did to help people too. So he wrote, and he did a lot of different things for his work. Oh, Harrison, oh dear, what'll we do? Do I have to carry you back?
Sorry. Next will be Linda Saul. She is going to say a few words about why she pledges to BSUU. Thank you, Linda.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ken, for asking me to think about this, and I have many reasons why I pledge, but I'll share just 3 of them. And the first one is for my family, actually, to kind of honor my family and where I came, the roots that I came from. My parents, like what we're going to hear about today, met in Boston, and one was an atheist and one was a Methodist, and when they decided to get married, they decided to become Unitarians, Universalists, which in Boston is our Mecca, is the homelands for Unitarians. And so I was raised in this faith, and for me, it's a way to honor my family tradition and my parents and that history, and I can touchstone back to different fellowships that I've gone to over the years, and I'm so grateful to have a Unitarian Universalist fellowship here in my hometown. And so the second reason I want to talk about why I pledged to this fellowship is for myself. I have an opportunity to grow in leadership. I have served this congregation fellowship twice as its president. I get to lead worship services here, which encouraged me to think about something that's been rattling around in my brain, and now I have a reason to put it down on paper and share it with all of you, kind of a 20-minute message. I am challenged by the 7 principles that we have, and I really appreciate that those are a challenge for me, and that sometimes when I'm struggling with things, I can think back to what does my Unitarian Universalist faith tell me about how to approach this situation. So there's a lot more I could say about myself with relationship to you, but why I have chosen to pledge here. But the third thing I want to talk about is this particular fellowship and each and all of you who are so special in my life, who I get to hear what's deep in your heart, both when we share our joys and concerns, when we share a bit of ourselves up here at the, as a worship leader about the message that you each have created for us. I really appreciate getting to know a community of people in a deep way like that. I appreciate the music that we get each Sunday that has been developed and performed and shared with us. And my book club here for me is really special. I am challenged to read books that I would not have picked, but I really enjoy the discussion that we have. And so those are the 3 things I want to just leave with you about why I choose to pledge every year for this fellowship. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I wouldn't have read The Weight of Ink if it wasn't for the book club. And now I don't ever want to get rid of the book. It's now time for our offering. We could use a little help if someone would be willing to step up with Karen. Sam, thank you. Thank you for your gifts this day and for all the gifts of action that makes this community possible. If you are visiting, please remain our guest. Your presence is your gift to us. Thank you, Sam and Shar.
25 in the Open Your Heart songbook. Thank you.
And now we'll have a responsive reading. Gemma, please. Gemma will read the leaders portion, and Karen will lead the responsive part in italics. You have yours? All right.
Good. 531. The Oversoul. Let us learn the revelation of all nature and thought, that the highest dwells within us, that the sources of nature are in our own minds.
As there is no screen or ceiling between our heads and the infinite heavens, so there is no bar or wall in the soul where we, the effect, cease, and God, the cause, begins.
I am constrained every moment to acknowledge a higher origin for events than the will I call mine.
There is a deep power in which we exist and whose beatitude is accessible to us.
Every moment when the individual feels invaded by it is memorable.
It comes to the lowly and simple. It comes to whomsoever will put off what is foreign and proud. It comes as insight. It comes as wisdom and grandeur.
The soul's health consists in the fullness of its reception.
Forever and ever, the influx of the second and more universal self is new and unsearchable.
Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty, to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one.
When it breaks through our intellect, it is genius. When it breathes through our will, it is virtue. When it flows through our affections, it is love.
Thank you, Gemma and Karen. We're moving on to our hymn. This will be number 309 in the Singing the Living Traditions hymnal. Number 309, Earth is our homeland. Now we have a second reading, also by Gemma, please. It is called To Live Deliberately, and it is by Thoreau. This is reading number 660.
To live deliberately. Why should we live in such a hurry and waste of life?
We are determined to be starved before we are hungry.
I wish to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life.
I wish to learn what life has to teach, and not, when I come to die, discover that I have not lived.
I do not wish to live what is not life. Living is so dear.
Nor do I wish to practice resignation unless it is quite necessary.
I wish to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life.
I want to cut a broad swath, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms.
If it proves to be mean, then to get the whole and genuine meanness of it and publish its meanness to the world.
Or if it is sublime, to know it by experience and to be able to give a true account of it.
Thank you, Gemma and Karen. And now our message. I learned from Gemma, always hydrate before you start. My title is Henry David Thoreau, His Lasting Influence on Unitarian Universalism. I will begin with 3 definitions that may help us understand who we in this fellowship are today and who Henry David Thoreau was. First, Unitarianism. Wikipedia defines Unitarianism as a non-Trinitarian sect of Christianity. Unitarians affirm the unitary nature of God as the singular and unique creator of the universe, believe that Jesus Christ was inspired by God in his moral teachings and that he is the savior of mankind, but he is not equal to God himself. Next, Universalism. Britannica defines universalism as follows. Universalism is considered a belief system that teaches the idea of universal salvation and the inherent worth of all individuals. It is a doctrine that posits that all people will ultimately be saved or reconciled with God. This belief is rooted in the idea that a loving and just God would not condemn individuals to eternal punishment. Instead, Universalists argue that everyone will eventually attain salvation, often after a period of purification and correction. And finally, Transcendentalism. Transcendentalism is a philosophical movement that emphasizes the importance of individual intuition and spirituality over traditional beliefs and intuitions. Key concepts of Transcendentalism include spirituality over reason. Transcendentalists believe that true understanding and spirituality come from personal intuition and self-reflection rather than through logic or organized religion. Inherent goodness. Transcendentalists hold the view that people and nature are inherently good and that society often corrupts this purity. Self-reliance. A core belief of Transcendentalism is that individuals should be self-reliant and independent, thinking for themselves rather than conforming to societal norms. And finally, connection to nature. My talk today borrows liberally from a 2017 article featured in UU World magazine titled Henry David Thoreau, the Original None. That's N-O-N-E, written by Richard Higgins. Though it appears well researched with many facts, analyses, and commentaries on Thoreau's lasting influence on Unitarian Universalism, it seems to me a bit dry and academic, more suited to a college lecture. So I'm distilling the highlights and adding what I hope will be a broader context and some anecdotes about the man to recreate the flesh and blood, three-dimensional Thoreau, who you might imagine standing beside me as our guest today. Henry David Thoreau was born July 12, 1817 in Concord, Massachusetts, to John and Cynthia Thoreau. Their religious views embraced traditional Christianity and the theology of the Unitarian faith. One account stated that John and Cynthia were permanently poor, John having failed in several business ventures. Henry was baptized Unitarian and received religious education as a youth. He was raised with 3 siblings, including a brother who died in 1842 and a sister who died in 1849. Henry attended Concord Academy, earning good marks good enough to attend Harvard University in 1833 as a scholarship student. He was 16. He established a reputation as an individualist and somewhat of a misfit there. While other students wore traditional dark-colored coats, he wore a bright green coat. I can imagine him happily shopping at secondhand clothing shops in Concord and buying for warmth, not fashion. Thoreau graduated from Harvard in 1837 and returned to Concord, where circumstances required him to earn a living. Darn. He tried teaching in public and private schools, but when he was required to enforce discipline by whipping students, which he was very opposed to, Thoreau decided that teaching was not for him. I will note, though, that one of Thoreau's students during this time was Louisa May Alcott. The Alcott family were neighbors in Concord. Higgins, the author of the article I referenced, writes, "In January 6th of 1841, an independent-minded 23-year-old man in Concord, Massachusetts, submitted a short note full of attitude quitting the local Unitarian church. Its cursive letters are firm and sweeping, especially the first. I do not wish to be considered a member of the first parish of this town." He wrote to the town clerk, signing Henry D. Thoreau. Thoreau never returned to the meeting house and was, to put it mildly, one of our wayward youth, Higgins said, but who is, 200 years after his birth, embraced by Unitarian Universalists who teach and celebrate his liberal religion. Thoreau began writing a journal in 1837, which became 14 volumes over his lifetime. One source stated that what Thoreau most wanted to do was to write poetry, which paid poorly, if at all. He also worked in a pencil factory behind the Thoreau home. The New England Historical Society states, "The Thoreau pencil was a triumph in Henry David Thoreau's lifetime." Did anyone know he was famous for a pencil? The Thoreau pencil was the most popular American-made pencil of its day. It supported the Thoreau family well enough to buy them a house in Concord, Massachusetts, and to pay for the publication of Thoreau's 2 books. Walden probably would have never been published without the Thoreau pencil. Thoreau self-published with his own money. One of Thoreau's neighbors in Concord was Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was described as a philosopher, lecturer, essayist, poet, abolitionist, and minister. Born in 1803 in Boston and growing up in Concord on the family homestead, Emerson worked in Boston until losing his job and losing his wife and a brother. He returned to the homestead in Concord. Emerson was a Unitarian minister who became so dissatisfied with established Unitarianism that he, along with Bronson Alcott, Louisa May's father, and several others in Concord, started an American Transcendentalist movement around 1830. Transcendentalism has been described by Botanica as an idealistic system of thought based on the belief in the essential unity of all creation and innate goodness of humanity, and the supremacy of insight and logic over experience to arrive at the revelation of the deepest truths. Emerson's most famous work is his essay titled Self-Reliant, published in 1841, which encouraged individualism, nonconformity, and trust in one's own instincts over societal pressures. Emerson was 14 years Thoreau's senior. They did not meet until Thoreau had graduated from Harvard. By then, Emerson had split from Unitarianism and fully embraced Transcendentalism. He became Thoreau's best friend. In 1841, Emerson invited Thoreau to live at his home and work around the home as long as the work didn't interfere with Thoreau's writing. Emerson got Thoreau a tutoring job in New York so that he could be close to the New York City literary market. Ultimately, that was not successful, and Thoreau returned to Concord. In 1845, at age 28, Thoreau built himself a cabin at Walden Pond near Concord on land owned by Emerson. Thoreau lived at Walden Pond for 2 years and 2 months, immersing himself in the natural world, closely observing and writing about nature. He wrote much of his book Walden while there. Thoreau worked only enough to sustain his minimalist lifestyle, reserving the majority of his time for studying nature and writing. He developed widely recognized skill as a land surveyor, which earned him a good wage, but which he carefully controlled to prevent paid work from interfering with his writing. Most of his life, Thoreau lived at home. He never married. The current, and this was as of 2017, minister of the Concord Church said Thoreau is more than an influence on our faith tradition. Modern-day Unitarian Universalism was in many ways started by Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson as a branch of the tree of historic Christianity that we are now at the end of. This is Reverend Howard Dana speaking. Both are alive and well in UU theology and practice today, he said. Emerson points us toward a unifying force greater than ourselves, and Thoreau shows us that we must practice our theology in the here and now. The result of Thoreau's influence, Dana said, is UU activism grounded in self-reflection. Were he to return on subsequent Sundays or visit the other Unitarian Universalist congregations, Thoreau could hardly be less surprised to discover full-throated affirmations of other things he wrote and thought, elevating the life of spirit over the material, an ethos of simplicity, reverence for the divine in nature, justice and inclusivity in matters of race, and the search for wisdom in Eastern, earth-centered, and other world religious traditions. Thoreau confronted consumerism and corporate greed. Mills produce clothing, he said, not that mankind may be well and honestly clad, but unquestionably that the corporations may be enriched. Thoreau's view of the moral underpinnings of political activism is another example. He spent a night in jail in 1846 after refusing to support slavery by paying his poll tax. This experience was the motivation for Thoreau to write one of his most influential works, Civil Disobedience. Thoreau cast his refusal not as an effort to reform others, but as a necessary act of conscience. When we fail to distinguish right from wrong, he wrote, we dull our capacity to make that distinction. Thoreau outlined a rationale for resistance to a corrupt state, a rationale that profoundly influenced figures such as Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., the Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy, and as well as many others who sought a nonviolence response to government oppression. Both Mohandas Gandhi and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said they learned about the moral basis of resistance as well as how to practice it from Thoreau's essay. Higgins goes on to write in his 2017 article, the Reverend Victoria Safford, a minister of White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church in Montemedi, Minnesota, said her church drew on Thoreau's legacy when it decided to join the new sanctuary movement seeking to protect immigrants from deportation. She said the church set its intent for sanctuary in the context of the long history of resisting the state, which, in addition to Thoreau's essay, includes the Underground Railroad, in which he also participated. In one of our earliest discussions about it, she said, one member asked, how can we not become involved? Safford said it reminded her of the story, thought to be apocryphal, of Emerson visiting Thoreau in jail and asking what he was doing in there. To which Thoreau replied, is said to have replied, what are you doing out there? I think that's a timely question for us today, Reverend Safford said. In civil disobedience, Thoreau was not hailed as a revolutionary social prophet. He was often considered simply an eccentric individual who followed his own conscience in all things, religious and otherwise. Some historians would argue that Thoreau's greatest influence today stems from his writing about nature, both our relationship to it and our care of the earth, and about the right to resist immoral laws. He died at age 44 of tuberculosis before he emerged as a political force, but Thoreau articulated the American conservation ethic. Naturalist John Muir, who advocated for the creation of the national park system, said Thoreau was an inspiration. Many environmental activists and conservationists still see him as a beacon and spokesperson. Higgins writes in his 2017 article, Unitarian Universalism's self-proclaimed principles and sources can read like a Cliff Notes version of Thoreau's opus. Respect for the interdependent web of existence, a free, responsible search for truth and meaning, the worth of every person, justice in human relations, the right to conscience as a guide, direct experience of transcending mystery, the wisdom of world faiths, the words of prophets old and new, the guidance of reason and science. Thoreau valued and specifically cited all of these. Does a church now exist for Thoreau in the form of modern Unitarian Universalism? Higgins cites Barbara Evans, a UU who took a church class on Thoreau, who said she found Thoreau's message very much in line with Unitarian Universalism, with one big exception. It seems that he kind of stands against community, she said. Most of us belong to the church for the sense of community it gives. So that part didn't speak to our class. Remembering that Thoreau left the Unitarian Church at age 23, never to return, it seems that perhaps he would not be comfortable sitting here among us today in this Unitarian Universalist fellowship. Our fellowship appears to find great value in community. The Gallup organization conducted a survey on religion and well-being in 2022. Gallup panel studies conducted by Harvard's Robert Putnam and others led these researchers to believe it's probable that something about being religious does in turn lead to higher well-being. But Putnam's research is particularly focused on the value of religious friends in enhancing one's well-being. As Putnam says, something about religion seems to cause people to become more satisfied with their lives. And that something turned out to be church friends. Controlling for ideology, church attendance, general sociability, and other demographic factors, gaining friends at church seems to make you both happier and nicer. And losing friends at church seems to have the opposite effect. Church friends produce happier, nicer people. Putnam said at the Gallup Symposium on Religion and Well-Being that church acquaintances are supercharged friends. As Putnam's research collaborator and University of Wisconsin sociologist Shayun Lim notes, to me, the evidence substantiates that it is not really going to church and listening to sermons that makes people happier, but making church-based friends and building intimate social networks there. I reflect on completing recent Gallup poll surveys I'll start that again. I completed Gallup surveys for a number of years. When I didn't find Unitarian Universalist listed as a choice for religious affiliation, I was left with only one option: other. Now I feel even closer to Henry David Thoreau, the original none. And now we have a few minutes for silent meditation. And now we have a few minutes for reflections on my talk or anything on your mind. Better not say that too loud. Karen will pass the microphone.
I see a hand.
Thanks, Karen. And thank you, Ken. This is mostly it's a lot to think about, and I enjoyed listening to you. Thank you. It's almost like freshman English, in a way. That's when I first heard about Thoreau. And also giving it a few minutes of wait time to let everybody else's thoughts gel a bit. And being outside today would not be my preference in any cabin by the lake.
Thank you, Ken. Really a lovely presentation.
Thank you.
One of the things that came up early on in your description of the Unitarians and the Universalists is the Holy Trinity and the basis in Christianity. And I was kind of hoping you would address that in your talk about the evolution of Unitarian Universalism, which has, I believe, moved beyond that, or maybe beyond is the wrong word, but
maybe set it aside is a more accurate word. And I find that very interesting. I know nothing about how that evolution occurred, and yet I'm interested in it particularly because I don't regard myself as a Christian, and yet the early Unitarian Universalisms did. So what happened?
Subject for another talk. Anyone else? Yes, Gemma?
Thank you, Ken. I very much appreciate hearing about Thoreau pretty much all the time, so it's very nice. I thought it was interesting, the one minister that you had, or UU member that you had mentioned, who said that Thoreau wasn't particularly interested in community, because I guess because he didn't go to church, but at the same time he was deeply involved in the Transcendentalist Society. He was really interested in community. I think it's just that the community that he needed didn't exist yet. And so he went out and made it with Emerson and Bronson Alcott and all of their followers. And it's very interesting to think about what it must have been like at that time to decide that you didn't really need to care very much about God. I think that would make you leave a church. I think it made lots of people, maybe in this room, leave a church. So thanks for teaching us a little bit about Thoreau today.
Yeah, thank you. That's an interesting observation. I thought of that too, that Transcendentalism was in Europe. It hadn't really caught on in America. But when they didn't find something that satisfied them, they started their own American Transcendentalist movement. So they literally created a place for themselves that didn't exist before. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you. We're going to have one more song. This is Holy Ground, number 50 in the Open Your Heart songbook. And Judy will lead us. Thank you, Judy. With accompaniment from Cheryl that I always appreciate.
May every step be holy. May we walk in peace. And may our hearts be open and all our fears released. May we stand for justice wherever suffering is found, and humbly walk together upon this holy ground. May every step be holy, for this is holy ground. May every step be holy. May we live in peace, and may our hearts be open to everyone we meet, and may we walk in beauty, reach out our hands to all around. May every step be holy, for this is holy ground. As we go forth together upon this holy ground.
Thank you, Judy and Cheryl. And now Karen will extinguish our chalice, and if you will read along with me in the order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are